Well, he's in. How? How did they do that? This shot feels illegal. Though I guess that was the point. But yeah, Sora's in Smash Brothers, which means I now get the opportunity to tell you all about some useless trivia relating to him. For example, I'm pretty sure most people by now know of the Easter egg that happens when you land the winning hit in a stamina match as Sora, where the screen slowly fades to white as this sound effect plays.
Game!
Which is a reference to how the same thing happens whenever you hit the finishing blow against a boss fight in various Kingdom Hearts games, but that's not what I wanted to talk about. This fading sound effect in Smash is directly tied to Sora, which I know sounds stupid obvious, but there are some weird interactions that can happen because of it. For example, if Sora is small or big through any means, like playing in Special Smash or using a mushroom item, the sound effect will be pitched up or down respectively. The Easter egg strangely also occurs if a Pokemon or assist trophy Sora summoned finishes the match. And what's even weirder is that if Sora is big or small while an assist wins the match for him, the sound effect will still be pitch shifted, even though they can't get bigger or smaller.
Try me.
And at the same time, it just straight up does not happen if in a team battle, Sora's teammate lands the final hit, which is to be expected, but it's a little bit of a shame. But yeah, this Easter egg can occur with pretty much any item that can do damage, which can lead to some very funny interactions, this one being my personal favorite. Anyways, Sora of course didn't come to Smash as just a character, since he also brought his new stage, Hollow Bastion, with him, which I also want to talk about for a little bit. First of all, did you know that Hollow Bastion is one of 3 stages in this game where you can't listen to a remixed music track on it, the others being Flat Zone X and Yggdrasil's Altar. Although, the 2 music tracks on Flat Zone X are actually newly composed for Smash Brothers, Melee and Brawl respectively, since Game & Watch handhelds, the things this stage is based on, of course had no music. I think it's pretty dumb that they're not considered remixes, since environmental noises on the Pigment stages is considered a remix, which was also quote-unquote composed specifically for Smash Brothers. So let's just say that Flat Zone X has original remixes, because really, it does. And also, when Smash Ultimate launched, Midgar infamously also didn't have any remixes available on it, since it only had 2 tracks, which came straight from Final Fantasy VII. This was obviously changed when Sephiroth became a DLC character and brought 4 new remixes. But it's still pretty funny to me that the 3 stages that at one point or another had no remixes made for Smash on it, are all the 3 stages that come from Square Enix franchises. I wonder if there's a connection. And in case you're wondering, if we only count new remixes made for Smash Ultimate specifically, aka the ones that have a red triangle in the corner instead of a blue one, then there's currently 17 stages in the game without them, which would have also included Gara Plain and Midgar if Pyra and Mithra and Sephiroth never became DLC fighters. Anyways, moving on from that quick music tangent, Hollow Bastion is a pretty cool new stage. I've barely played Kingdom Hearts and I have no idea how much significance it holds to the franchise, but it's a nice looking stage, which is the most important thing in my opinion. The fact that when someone is on their final stock or time remaining is low in a timed match, it changes into this dive into the heart form is just so cool. Which for some reason doesn't happen if you have stage hazards turned off, even though it's not a hazard, it doesn't affect gameplay at all. And this is also the case for the Omega and Battlefield forms of this stage for some reason. This makes it one of only 2 Omega and Battlefield forms in the game that's affected by the stage hazard toggle settings, the other being Figure 8 Circuit, where, again, for some reason, the Shy Guy racers in the background don't show up. Anyways, back to Hollow Bastion. During this dive into the heart form, there's some pretty artwork of a Kingdom Hearts character in the background, which is always randomly selected from 7 different ones, namely featuring Sora, Roxas, Aqua, Ventus, Riku, Terra, or Xion. Right, nice name. These stained glass artworks come from a variety of Kingdom Hearts games and are called Stations of Awakening. There have been a lot of them over the years, and originally they only featured various Disney princesses. Or doors from Monsters Inc., whatever, you get the idea. Some characters have had multiple versions with slight differences, but if we're going to be specific about their origins, the Ventus one comes from Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. The Aqua, Riku, Roxas, and Terra ones all come from the 2020 Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC called Remind, as in Remind. The Sora one comes from Kingdom Hearts 2. He had a couple of them with some differences, mostly in the colors, but it's this one specifically that's in Smash, called the Station of Serenity. And lastly, the Shion one comes from the memorial stained glass clock in Tokyo's Shinjuku Station from January 9th to January 15th, 2017. Just kidding. Oh wait, I'm not kidding. Or I'm only half kidding, and I've been lying to you about the origins of the other artworks. Kind of. Let me explain. Okay, so Sora is from the Kingdom Hearts series, which was originally made to be a crossover between Final Fantasy and the world of Disney, as you're probably well aware. There's a ton of Disney stuff in the games, like Sora's two main teammates being Donald Duck and Goofy, but when Sora joined Smash Brothers and thus Kingdom Hearts became represented in it as well, Disney clearly wanted as little as possible to do with it, because they're just a fantastic company. Literally, the only Disney-related thing in Smash Bros. Is the Mickey Mouse keychain on the handle of Sora's Keyblade, and of course the company's name in the credits and the Kingdom Hearts logo on the stage select screen, but that's a given. Now I hear you asking, PJiggles, what are you talking about all of a sudden? You were just going over the origins of the artworks in the background of the Hollow Bastion stage, and my response to you is, trust me, I'm getting there. In 2017, the Kingdom Hearts franchise turned 15 years old, and to celebrate they put up that big clock in Shinjuku Station in Tokyo I mentioned earlier, which had a big picture of Sora's stained glass art in the center, surrounded by 12 different designs for each hour. All of these designs except the centerpiece and the 6 o'clock piece were newly made for this clock, and if you look down at the 5 o'clock design, it's Shion. So this is where the Shion Station of Awakening design in Smash comes from, some random clock in Tokyo which only stood for about 6 days. And not only that, but the Aqua, Riku, and Roxas designs I said came from the Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC actually also come from this clock. The designs were just later repurposed for use in that DLC. But the confusion goes even further than that. Some keen-eyed watchers may have already noticed that some of the designs in Smash are a little bit different than the originals I showed earlier. Specifically, the Sora, Aqua, Terra, and Riku ones are a bit different, as they're all missing some Disney properties. Sora is missing Donald and Goofy in the background, of course, and Riku has been moved up to where Goofy originally was, and the two empty slots have been replaced by a raft and a Paopu fruit from Kingdom Hearts, which get their design from the Station of Awakening called Sora's Mind from Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. The Aqua one has the Mickey Mouse symbols in the checkerboard pattern behind her, replaced with other Kingdom Hearts related symbols. Similarly, Terra's design got the Mickey Mouse symbols on the outer ring replaced with other symbols that probably mean something. And lastly, Riku's design had the incredibly funny render of who else but Mickey Mouse removed and replaced with a render of Sora, specifically originating from the box art of Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories, which also featured Riku. I'm not done yet. These altered versions, not including any Disney properties, were not made for Smash Brothers specifically. They have another really obscure origin. Remember that clock I mentioned earlier made for Kingdom Hearts' 15th anniversary? Well, way later that year, the Square Enix cafes and gift shop found in Japan were also celebrating this anniversary, notably by having some Kingdom Hearts themed coasters featuring various Station of Awakening artworks from across the series, including the ones made for that clock. Neat. But I guess Disney wasn't down for this idea because, I don't even know, so the designs were altered to not include any Disney characters on them. Sound familiar? Yes, the Station of Awakening designs found in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate come from coasters. Coasters! From a 2017 event in the Square Enix cafes in Japan. Coasters! Those things you put your glass on to not leave those icky circles on your table. I don't even understand why Disney had a problem with this in the first place, considering at the same time, at those same cafes, they were selling Kingdom Hearts Pinbadge sets featuring Station of Awakening designs, which did have the Disney characters on them. And, better yet, they've had other Kingdom Hearts coasters with Disney characters on them at the same cafes. Disney, what the fuck? I swear to God, this is gonna give me a mental breakdown. Anyways, let's quickly recap where all the Station of Awakening designs found in Smash actually come from. Sora, Aqua, and Riku originate from the coasters the Square Enix cafes in Tokyo and Osaka, and the Square Enix gift shop called Artnia had in 2017. Roxas and Shion come from the memorial stained glass clock Shinjuku Station in Tokyo, had in 2017, for Kingdom Hearts' 15th anniversary. Ventus actually comes from Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. Wow, that's simple. And lastly, Terra... okay, slight interesting case. I promise this won't take long. I was not able to find a concrete answer to this online because, well, let's be real, this is the most vague thing I've ever had to research in my life. But when they took the designs found on the clock and edited out the Disney characters to make coasters out of them, they couldn't really do anything about the 7 o'clock design because it just featured Mickey Mouse front and center. So what they did is take the Terra render seen in the background here and made that the front and center character on it, and then used this design to make a coaster out of. But as you can see, it still has the Mickey Mouse symbols around it. The render of the coaster design you see now before you comes from this image, and my theory is that this image is unfinished concept art of the coasters, which would make sense considering here we see the Disney characters edited out of these two, but not the Terra one. And also the Mickey Mouse symbols still appear very small in the background of the Aqua design. Based on information I was able to find online, their coasters with the edited out Disney properties did exist, but I was not able to find an actual picture of them, hence why we now have to speculate that the coasters is where the Terra design in Smash comes from. Anyways, oh my god, I never want to talk about coasters ever again on this channel. That took a very long time, so now let's not waste any more time and just move on. Why do these characters each have different colored shields? Well, it's because of their player color. There are a couple of things that change depending on your player number. You know, the order in which you joined in on the character select screen. The color of your shield is the most notable one. From players 1 to 8, they are as follows: red, blue, yellow, green, orange, cyan, pink, and purple. Everything else that changes color depending on player count follows this same color order, tied to the same count, so just keep that in mind. For computer-controlled players, all of this will be gray, which you sadly can't easily check for yourself because for some reason, when you set the CPU dummy in training mode to act on their own, it'll all be gray as expected, but the moment you start controlling them yourself with a second controller, then it'll all be blue as if they were player 2. Also for figure players, aka amiibo fighters, all of their stuff will also be gray, except their global UI elements, which will have a yellow to blue gradient. Anyways, back to human players. If you're playing a match with, for example, only players 2 and 5, then the shields and everything else that changes color with player count will still only be blue and orange respectively. The only real exception to this is with Yoshi's shield, as it has him hiding in his egg, which changes color depending on alternate costume, not player count. But what are all the other things that change color with player count? Well, most notably, whenever you get launched, the trail of smoke behind you is determined by the player that launched you. So it'll be red if player 1 launched you, blue if player 2 launches you, yellow if player 3 launches you, and so on. And if you actually hit the blast zone, the fiery blast that comes out is the color of the player that just got KO'd. Green for player 4, orange for player 5, cyan for 6, yada yada yada. Contrary to popular belief, this blast doesn't change depending on who initiated the KO. Player 1's KO blast will always be red, no matter which player launched them into the blast zone. There are a lot of things that change depending on player color, too many to name them all even, so here are a few quick ones. The color of this splash effect on the victory screen, the name tag above your head if you have one, otherwise it just shows your player number in color of course, the arrow above items you throw or are active for you, same goes for assist trophies and Pokeball summons, they will have a player arrow above them, and some specific stage events like when you recruit Flying Men on Magicant or you defeat a boss enemy and they explode. Those will have your player name above them, which are of course also colored to your player color. Now that's all well and good, but Peach, Daisy, Ness, Lucas, Villager, Isabelle, Pikachu, Pichu, Greninja, Kirby, kinda, Diddy Kong, King K. Rool, Olimar, Duck Hunt Duo, Cloud, Joker, kinda, and Sora all have something unique about them that changes color depending on player slot. You know, aside from all the global stuff like the shield color. Let's get the boring ones out of the way first. These 4 simply spawn items which of course have a player arrow above them. Diddy Kong's down special pulls a banana peel and it has a player arrow above it, very simple. Peach and Daisy have a small chance of pulling either a Bomb-Omb or a Mr. Saturn with their down specials, which are items and thus have player arrows above them. I guess the game doesn't consider the actual turnips as items as they don't have an arrow above them. And K. Rool is a bit more interesting as he doesn't just spawn an item like the others. His side special is him throwing a crown, which normally just comes right back at him like a boomerang, at which point he catches it and he just puts it back on his head. But if it for whatever reason misses and lands on the ground, or it just goes flying off stage and then a little later respawns on the ground, it becomes an item, at which point it'll naturally have a player icon above it. In all 4 of these cases, if the opponent grabs or catches the item and uses it, it'll instead have their player colored arrow above them, since, you know, it's just them using an item. Anyways, moving on, Olimar kind of has something similar. The next Pikmin Olimar is going to use is indicated with a player arrow above them. It's the same arrow as above an item, which is the same arrow as under your name tag. In this instance, my purple Pikmin has the arrow above it, so when I use an up smash, the purple one is the one that's used. A lot of people don't know this apparently, but if you use his down special, the arrow will move to the next Pikmin, which of course means they're next in line. From here on out, the cases get a bit more interesting. Pikachu, Pichu, and Greninja have pretty similar up specials. They each just dash in 2 quick directions, and you can choose the precise direction for each successive dash. For all 3 of them, very shortly before the first dash, and before the second dash, an arrow shows up that points at the direction you'll go, which you can of course very quickly alter with the control stick, and this arrow changes depending on player color. Ness and Lucas have something very similar with their up special. As we all know, they control a little lightning ball, and you have to hit yourself with it to make yourself go flying. You can hit Ness or Lucas from a specific angle to make them fly at specific angles, and when the ball is close to you, an arrow quickly shows up to show you what direction you're currently aiming at. It doesn't happen on a timer or anything, as it also shows up when you're just grazing past them. It depends on how close the ball is to them. And the new boy himself, Sora, also has something like this, though it's not with up special, but instead side special. The first dash is always sideways, but the second and third can be angled in any direction, and you guessed it, a small arrow shows up before those 2 dashes, showing you which direction you're gonna go, which of course change with player color. Interestingly, when you use the last 2 close enough to an opponent, the attacks will auto home in on them, and then the arrow doesn't show up, which makes sense since instead they'll briefly have a target on them, which shows you where Sora will dash to. And for the last character with an arrow that changes color, during Cloud's limit gauge charge, an arrow shows up below it that of course comes in all player colors. I'm willing to bet a lot of you have never seen the arrow above his head be purple for player 8. And from here on out, the few remaining colors changing things get a lot more interesting. Villager and Isabelle, for example, have completely different colored balloons in their up special. This is personally my favorite player color dependent thing in the game, probably because it's very in your face and not just something as basic as an arrow. Duck Hunt Duo also has something cool. During their smash attacks, side special, and neutral special, reticles show up, and you may have guessed it since I'm mentioning them, said reticles are player color dependent. And since neutral special is also affected by this, that means it also applies to Kirby when he copies said ability. And yes, this reticle will be completely determined on Kirby's player color and not Duck Hunt's. He doesn't have anything unique for himself that changes color with player slot, but thanks to his buddy Duck Hunt, he does. Which is why with him I said kinda when mentioning all of the characters that have this. And hey, speaking of that, I also said kinda with Joker because, well, he has the special victory screen that changes color if there are 3 or more people in the match, which I've also mentioned in the very first Useless Smash Facts video. Now I hear you saying, but PJiggles, every character's victory screen changes depending on player slot, like you said. Why are you giving special attention to Joker? Oh wait, you weren't asking that? Well, just in case anyone was, during one of his victory screens, some veins from Memento show up in the background, which also change depending on player color. And that's an actual model that gets altered instead of a UI element or special effect or something, which is the case for every other victory screen. And even if it doesn't count, I would be remiss to not at least mention it. And if you've watched this series before, you know what's coming. I posted an image of these 17 characters on Twitter and asked if anyone could guess what they have in common that no other characters have, to see who would get the answer right first. Look, I even put some special disclaimer text on Kirby and Joker for being 2 little oddballs in this situation. For the first 30 minutes it looked like nobody was gonna win somehow, but sure enough somebody did after that. This time the first person to get it right was Delxus797. And yeah, they were the first one to answer it successfully, so they win. But I also want to give a shout out to Nico Selduil for being the first person to get it right and also actually name all of the instances of it. I'm sure that someday I'll be able to post one of these and actually have nobody get the answer right. But who knows, maybe you'll be the person to stop me from finally having that sweet satisfaction. So if you want a chance at that, be sure to check out my Twitter for the next time I make a tweet like this. Also real quick here at the end, because I didn't know where else to say this, but Sephiroth also has an arrow indicating what direction you're holding right before his up special, just like Pikachu. However, it's always light blue and does not change with player color, since it's likely based on the UI of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Anyways, that would be the end of this video, but it feels kind of weird for me to end with the Twitter fact, because I've never done that before. So instead, I'll give you 2 more quick Sora facts that everyone and their mothers have been telling me about since he released. So you probably already know them. First off, if Sora picks up a one-handed item like a baseball bat or killing edge, he'll grab it with his left hand and hold the Kingdom Key over his shoulder, which apparently references the Valor Drive form from Kingdom Hearts 2, whatever that is. And secondly, if he turns metal in his Timeless River alt, his facial features will just disappear, because they're pretty much just 2D textures slapped on his head, which isn't the case for all other alts. This means that the same thing happens in a few other cases, like turning gold on the Golden Plain stage from collecting 100 coins, or being covered in Inkling's ink, since those kinda use like the same code or something. The reason everyone knew and told me about that second one, even though you'd think it'd be kind of obscure, is because of this tweet from Smash Ultimate's director, Masahiro Sakurai, just straight up showing it. But who knows, maybe some people didn't know about it also affecting turning gold or being covered in Inkling's ink, so hopefully I taught someone something with this. Anyways, that really is the end of the video. When I started working on it, I posted this tweet asking people for some cool useless Sora facts to be used in this very video, but the only actual submission I ended up using was this one from Crispy Pixels. Aside from that, there was nothing I didn't know myself already or was all too interesting for me to include or at least use right now. No offense to anyone else who replied on it. Well, I mean, to be fair, these 2 replies from Fasilko Jacob is what led me and a friend of mine, who is a big Kingdom Hearts fan, to dive deep into the stupid rabbit hole of the origins of the dive into the heart artworks in Smash. And man, I gotta tell you, I know Kingdom Hearts lore has a track record of being super confusing, but none of that even compares to the mind spinning I got from researching that fact. That aside, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, or a dislike, because it doesn't even matter anymore if you do anyways. Just kidding. Don't leave a dislike. Thanks. Next time I make a useless Smash Facts video, it'll be episode number 100. Quite crazy. If you want to make sure to catch it when it goes live, you can always subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a baller day. Goodbye.